this video we'll be talking about equipment options, which actually serve many uses in the MPP families. For one, they are controlling when the articulated Cartesian arms are turned on and off. So for some of these more complex families, like dedicated outdoor air systems where you have many different configurations, there's extra connectors in the family so that the family can be served by multiple types of plants. For example, gas, if it's a gas-fired heat exchanger, or hot water, or steam, or whatever. So these construction parameters control the arms, and they also control the descriptions that show up in schedules for the different components. So like a heating coil or a cooling coil, these parameters here will control what that cooling coil description is. So whether it's evaporator cooling coil or whether it's a chilled water coil. So let's talk about how some of these options, how they flex. Okay, so right now I have more or less all the arms turned on, and this is some 3D text, so you guys can see what's what. So right now we have, let's just run down the line here. So we have a supply fan checked. We have an exhaust fan now checked. We have energy recovery, and we're using this. So let's say we have a water source heat pump DOAS unit. We would have an evaporator coil. We would have a condenser heating coil right here. We may have a preheat coil, which would probably be electric for the energy wheel. And then let's say we don't have gas-fired heat exchanger, and let's turn off cooling heat exchanger, which essentially is the evaporator side on a chiller. And heating heat exchanger would be the condenser side of like a water-to-water heat pump. So let's turn that off. We're not going to have a rejection coil, which was set up for cooling towers, and we're not going to have a pump. And we are going to have a roof curb. So if we hit apply, you'll see what will go away. So we have a third refrigerant connector here, and we also have a liquid and a gas connector. We have our condenser supply and return, and then we have a condensate line here, which you can't really see. So so if this was a packaged DX piece of equipment, we wouldn't end up having these pipe connectors. So let's select package DX, and we'll turn off discharge gas, which was mainly set up for VRF equipment that has a 3-pipe system. And now let's hit apply. And there we go. So we have our condenser connections, we have a condensate connection, and we have our duct connections into the unit. Now let's say, for example, we are going to make a water-to-water heat pump. Let's turn all of these off. So this family does chug a little bit because this family can fill every mechanical schedule that we have included, and it has all the formulas in place. So rightfully so, it's a bit heavy. So let's turn off electric heat. And let's turn on a cooling heat exchanger and the heating heat exchanger. And so maybe this will be an indoor unit, so we're going to turn off the roof curb as well. I also should note with these construction type parameters, we spent a lot of time adding hints for or tooltips for various parameters. So like if you looked at equipment as discharge gas, you know, this is it's a gas for refrigerant. If you look at, you know, any abbreviated parameter, you'll see the full text in the pop-up. Condenser heating coil, once again, was for a heat pump. So these cooling and heating heat exchangers, you'll see it's the evaporator side of the heat exchanger during cooling operation. And then rejection would be the condenser side. All right, so we've chosen our options. Let's hit apply. And this comes up because there's going to be multiple arms in the same spot, which is just fine. And here we are. We have a 6-pipe system in this case: chilled water, heating water, and condenser water. No duct connections. We have our power connector. So that's the power of these types of parameters. Now let's look at. I'm just going to copy some text. So let's go down to the loads category, mechanical loads, and now let's look at some of our descriptions. So all the coils that are not used, you know, will end up saying not used. And if we look at the rejection heat exchanger description, we're seeing cooling design condenser heat exchanger. Perfect. So once again, this family has every parameter. That's why this is all here. So absorbing heat exchanger description, heating design, evaporator. So that's what these parameters are doing. They are controlling the arms and the descriptions for the different coils and components. All right, let's make one more. So let's make an air handling unit. So we'll turn these off. All right, so this air handling unit is going to have a supply and a return fan. And it's going to have an evaporator coil and a condenser heating coil. Well, we'll do this will be a DX coil, evaporator coil, and then we'll have a heating coil. And then the rest of this we'll keep as is for the moment. So let's hit apply. So as you can see, we have our refrigerant connections for the coil. We have our heating supply and return for the heating coil. We have a condensate connector, and then here's our 2 duct connections. Now let's say this air handling unit needs an outdoor air connection because there's a mixing box. Well, we can turn on equipment has outside air. I know it doesn't say this, but this really should read equipment has outside air connection. And let's hit apply. And there we go. Now we have a duct connector that we can locate for an outdoor air connection. There's a hood on this one which can be turned off, but this is here for moving around economizer hoods and things like that. So the only notes I have is in regards to the electric heat. So if you hover over this parameter, you'll see this will change the preheat coil and heating coil from heating water to electric resistance. So if you have an electric coil in a given piece of equipment, how you'll see the family set up is you'll see that the coils are chosen, but then this basically overrides that. So here I'll turn on both preheat and heating coils. And then we're going to take a quick look at those descriptions. So as you can see, the preheat coil is a heating water coil. The heating coil is a heating water coil. And now if we change the parameter to have equipment has electric heat, you'll see it, the family basically just converted all of that information into electrical information. When we hit apply, the heating water pipes go away. And if we look at those descriptions, you'll see that these are now electric heat options. So that's the only unique piece, is if you need electric heat, you first need to choose heating or preheat coil, and then choose equipment as electric heat. In the project, we also have a schedule set up with all of these options. So this is another component schedule, which we'll be talking more about in the schedules chapter. But if you scroll down into schedules quantities, down under M_component, these are all components to mechanical equipment families. Here's the summary right here. This essentially will show you all of those options. So you can edit this way in the project as well. Thanks.